And it looks like we're live on YouTube. Let me go ahead and start the recording real quick.
Got it recorded on my end.
Right. And record on this computer. And this is Male Entrepreneur Podcast. We are live in 3, 2. And I'm still waiting for Zoom to officially connect us with YouTube. It probably already is, but Zoom.
It says it's live on my end.
Okay, let's just pretend that it is. All right, welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
What's up, man? Doing awesome. I'm excited about today's topics. You got a good one here. So for those of you out there listening, Nathan has brought this forward because Nathan is a coach himself. He works with other people. He's a consultant, and he's dealing with challenges that people have. And you got some really cool ones here. So today's topic is brought to you by Nathan.
I'm gonna say this though. These are things that you and I were talking about way back in the day, and the reason that I wanted to talk to you about them is that you're kind of my go-to guy on most of this stuff. These are things that you actually help me with. And then I'm starting to realize, holy crap, this is really what it's all about. With so many of my clients, I'm realizing these same things over and over again. And it's funny because people hire me, and they hire me because they want copy written for them, or they want marketing funnels created for them. And I'm noticing that the people that I'm really able to succeed with are the ones that already have these mindset issues figured out, and the ones that, no matter how great the funnel is or how great the sales copy is, if they don't have these mindset issues figured out, doesn't matter. My work just doesn't work for them. And it's weird because it's almost like a metaphysical level that this stuff works on. And so that's why I was like, hey, Purdeep, would you entertain me and we can have a discussion about these 6 things that I keep running into? And you were like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's an awesome topic, man. I love it. So first, thank you. And this is kind of how I see it. And based on what you're talking about is in working with anybody, whether it's employees or clients or whatever, from that perspective, I kind of look at it as a 3-legged race. Is that in any situation where you're giving someone something to do, that there has to be some kind of synchronicity in that. And a lot of times there isn't. And that's why people don't execute on stuff that you give them. I noticed this when I became a personal trainer at 17, and I could give someone the exact, basically, here's how you lose weight, here's your routine. And some of the people, I would say more than half the people wouldn't do it. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, you're so wanting to lose weight or you're so wanting to get fit, yet you're not going to do it. And or other people that would just complain about certain things. So that told me at that time, I was just like, wow, you know what really differentiates people that get stuff done versus people that don't? And these belief systems or these belief components that you brought up, Nathan, are bang on in terms of what I would say 95% of people deal with either in their business or in their personal life in some way, shape, or form.
So I kind of wanted to go through, I have 6 of them here, and I wanted to go through and just kind of have a discussion so that I could bounce some of my ideas off of you and get your input, but also so that the listeners can check themselves and ask, hey, is this something that I'm dealing with? Is this something that maybe I'm not recognizing about myself and I need to address? And it's weird because these, and I'm going to be completely honest, a couple of these I'm still struggling with myself. But most of them I've been able to have breakthroughs with. And that's what led to all the breakthroughs in my business, was kind of figuring these ones out. The first one I wanted to talk about, and I see this so often, is opportunity chasing, entrepreneurial ADD, where I know all these people that I follow them on Facebook or I follow them on LinkedIn, and this month they're a Bitcoin specialist, and next month they're going to be a CBD salesperson, and then the week after that they're going to be a affiliate marketing guru. And I see this so frequently where people just every couple of months they're chasing a new opportunity, and they never give any of them a long enough time to actually hit. And why I even struggle with this, and I have to tell myself, no, this is not something that it feels like that dog that in mid conversation, he goes, squirrel, and he looks off to the side. Why do, why do entrepreneurs have so much trouble focusing on one thing? And why are we so easily distracted with opportunities?
It's funny, yeah, because I call it I call it the squirrel syndrome because I think that's exactly what it is. It is a squirrel syndrome. So let's take a look at it. Society has changed significantly as well, right? So we have a lot more technology, we have a lot more electronics, we got a lot more media, especially with social media. Everybody's trying to get your attention. Attention spans for people have come down. So if you take a look at it from that perspective alone, just in terms of how our brains are being trained, we are constantly looking for new stimuli. So be aware of that from that perspective is our society is changing. That's why I'm so adamant about my kids. I don't put them out. They don't have an iPad. They don't. I don't allow them to sit on the computer unless it's actually learning, for example, something constructive, because I don't want them to have lower attention spans. I want them to be able to focus. So that's one area. The second piece is because you know what? It's one of those things that if we're not seeing the progress on our current path, we think maybe we need to do something differently. So if we think about it from this perspective, if we are doing everything we can to get to our goal and we're seeing the progress of getting there, then we're not as distracted. The challenge is a lot of times is we're not making that progress at the pace or the rate that we want. And so we say, okay, maybe instead of saying maybe my approach is different, we say maybe I need to take a look at a new goal, for example. And I think that is the difference. And because there's so many courses out there, there's so much news out there, it's all about the newest and sexy stuff. And we don't want to be left behind. So a big component, I think, is also the fear of missing out, right? As you know, as a copywriter, that is a huge driving factor for people's decisions. I'll use myself as an example, Nathan. Over the last few months, we have done a lot more consulting on helping businesses out of this recession and helping them navigate certain things. And we've gotten some really big contracts. And I've been looking at this saying, man, this is super, super lucrative in terms of what we could be doing here. But I had to reset myself. And I probably did this about 2 weeks ago. And I said, I'm not going to take myself off this core path in terms of helping men and male entrepreneurs and male CEOs, because I was getting distracted myself and I was saying, wow, I can create this whole new revenue stream and set up this whole new business. In fact, I actually hired some people to do that. And then I said, crap, I just completely missed something that I was so passionate about. And my end goal is ultimately to help men, is to help men be more successful in their business, their families. And so I just took I go through the exact same thing myself. Uh, and I think that's why it's important to be around stable people as well. And I'm not saying like they're mentally stable. What I'm saying is that they know their true north, right? They know where they're headed and they have a sense of stability and they have the sense of calmness.
So the second one, we hear about this a lot. It's called imposter syndrome. It's uh, these people are going to find out I'm a fraud and I'm not nearly as good as Guru X is. And why should they pay me when they could get Guru X to do it for them? And uh, I feel like, especially with some of my clients, I feel like this is the biggest thing that holds them back because they have so much potential. I see the potential in them, but they don't believe it in themselves. And when they don't believe it in themselves, they don't do the things that they need to do in order to execute on it. I lay out, here's how you can get to where you should be at. And they have the steps right there in front of them, and they never take the steps because they don't feel like they're worthy of actually getting to that end goal.
Yeah. And so I've been there too, man. So I think every person, especially for guys, I think we feel this quite a bit too, because here's what I personally believe it comes down to is comparing ourselves to others. Rather comparing ourselves to our own progress, we say, oh, that person's already there, or that person's already achieved that, or look at the credentials that they have, or look what kind of clients they're working with. I faced that exact same thing when I got into the industry, and I took a look, and I was comparing myself to Gary Vee and Tony Robbins, and there's no way these guys have millions and millions of followers, and they've been doing this for that much longer. But I kept shooting myself in the foot and saying, who am I to compare myself to these people's talent? Like, I got nothing compared to them. And so it's just that for me, fundamentally, it comes down to comparison. That's one word.
Okay. This other one, and maybe I'm being maybe I'm being insensitive about it, but I thinking too small. I know so many people that at the beginning of their entrepreneurial career, they say to themselves, well, if I could just make enough to replace my 9 to 5 job, if I could just make as much as I make at my regular job doing this thing that I love, I would be happy. If I could just make $3,000 a month doing this thing I'm passionate about, that would be good enough for me. And I feel like if you're only aiming for that, you're probably not even going to be able to reach that. And the people that are like, man, if I could turn this into a multinational corporation where I'm employing 500,000 people and I'm affecting the lives of millions of people, that would be amazing. Those are the people that actually succeed. And it's because they're shoot. I guess it's like if you shoot for the moon, you might not even make it out of the atmosphere. But if you shoot for the stars, you're probably going to be able to hit the moon. Um, why do so many people set their own goals so low? That so many people that say I want to own my own business, and if I can, we talked about this last time. Oh, the difference between being a business owner and being self-employed. If I can just make enough to pay myself a good paycheck every month, I'll be happy. Why are so many people set a false limitation on their own success that way?
Yeah, really good point, because our biggest limitations are basically set by ourselves. They're not set by other people. They're set by what we think of ourselves and our own capacity and our own abilities. For me, when I see this, and I see this a lot, especially with even entrepreneurs who are either doing success or very successful or not successful, it really comes down to simply is the fear of failure. And that's really what it is, because if we hit, or if we have a high target and we don't hit it, we're going to feel like a failure, right? And that's just a natural part of being a human being. So what do? We set a target that we think is comfortable, that if we know that we're going to be able to hit it. And so if I hit it, I feel good about myself. But if I set this awesome target and I don't hit it, man, I'm going to feel like a failure, and I'm not going to aim that high again next time. And so we've seen this, and I see this a lot with people, with men in particular. They have set a massive goal in the past and not hit it. And therefore, they will not set another massive goal for themselves. One failure will set their tone for the rest of their lives if they allow it to. So this is something that's important. For me, this is something I really realized, Nathan, and I keep hammering this home because a big component of the work that I do with men is helping them unlock their creative genius for their brain. People's brains are so powerful. It's the most powerful thing that we could ever use. And so there's certain techniques with that. But again, I go back to when I was in school and I was literally acing my grades and not studying and doing all these kinds of things. This is one thing that stood out for me, man, is when I would talk to other students and I would say, hey, what are you going for in terms of that exam? What are you aiming for? They'd be like 80, 85, maybe in the 90. And I'd be, what the hell are you aiming so low for? Aim for 100 and you might get 100. Aim for 100, you might get 98. Maybe you get 95. But if you aim for an 80, you're going to get an 80. Right? And that's the one thing, the differentiating factor for me, that I realized I'm like, I'm just aiming higher than everybody else, and therefore I'm getting better results.
Yeah, wow. A couple of those things were like revelations for me, especially the um we've been burnt in the past by aiming too high, so we're too afraid to ever aim that high again. That's so true. The next one, and this one, especially in a time like right now, I'm even afraid to bring this up because it's such an emotional issue for people. But when I was younger, I had pretty lofty dreams, and then I went down this rabbit hole of conspiracy theories about how the Illuminati was holding everybody down, and if you wanted to be successful, you had to join these secret societies, and you wouldn't be, they had like some kind of lock over everything where you weren't, there was a glass ceiling and nobody could get past working class unless you joined the secret society and they approved, and that's how you got. And I had this major victim complex, and I see that a lot nowadays where people say, oh, society is holding me back, or systemic oppression is holding me back, or um, systemic racism is holding me back. And I think that there is some legitimacy to it. I think that there are power structures that the people who have the power want to maintain the power. I think that there are people who say, oh, you don't look like me, I'm not going to let you in my club. But I also feel like if you're somebody who focuses on your obstacles, you're going to never be able to finish the race. If you're somebody who focuses on, who says, hey, these obstacles exist, but I'm going to focus on how to get around these obstacles, then you're going to be able to get around the obstacles. um this this it seems to be sweeping society right now, the victim complex, and it's not always based on race. It's based on all kinds of different things. Like I said, I pass for white, and I still spent a lot of my life looking at myself like a victim, looking like, or believing that people were holding me back and it was their fault that I wasn't succeeding. And it relieved me from the responsibility of looking in the mirror and saying, no, it's your fault, you're not succeeding. What are your thoughts about this, just kind of looking around? um Touchy subject, but I want to know what your opinion is.
Oh, wow, this is gonna be, we could do a whole episode on this one. So first of all, I for my kids, I think this is one of the most important subjects for me in terms of what I teach my kids. I will not raise my kids to be victims in any way, shape, or form, because I know it's not going to be good for them, and they are going to hurt and they are going to suffer as a result. And it could go for generations, because I've seen generations have a victim mentality. The second piece is, what you focus on is what you get. So if you focus on being a victim, you will continuously be a victim. I also think that this last generation, whether it's the baby boomers or whatever it is, even this next generation, again, I don't think we have any 20-year-olds listening to this podcast. They're typically older. We'll find out. But I think the next generation is being raised to be entitled and raised to be victims, because everything is about convenience. Everything is about, okay, you can do it, and everybody's neutral, everybody's equal. No, that's not the reality of life. You put more work in, you're going to get more out. You cannot expect to get the same results by putting in less effort than someone else. And it's, for me personally, it's just not right. I think work ethic, there's a lot to say about it. And we do not respect elders to the degree that we should respect elders. And in my culture, you can say, background, we are meant to respect elders. If someone's a few years older than me, I speak to them in a specific tone because they are older than me, and I respect their knowledge and wisdom to a certain degree. I don't believe I'm entitled by any means compared to someone that's older than me. For example, I can tell you, my kids, my son will talk back to me. I say, talk back to me one more time. Say it one more time. Let's see what happens. Just try it. These are the way kids are being raised these days. Now, just to add on to that, we in the US and Canada are lucky. We are so lucky. And there's a lot of other countries out there where they're lucky. In the business atmosphere, let's just say, in US and Canada, we can start a business within a couple of days. We can get our business license, we can get our trade license, whatever it is, and start a business. You know what? Some countries, it takes up to 6 months to do that. So we are completely lucky to live in the countries that we live in, because we have so much opportunity. We have so many options. On the flip side, though, Nathan, there are people, there are societies, there are organizations that want to suppress people, and we just have to be aware of that. And so, for someone out there who feels like a victim, just be aware of who the people are that you hang around with. Are they people that bring you up, or are they people that bring you down? Because that in itself is a huge factor for why people feel victimized and entitled these days as well.
Okay, so the next one, anti-money and anti-success beliefs. People that think uh, if you're rich and successful, it's because you exploited people, or uh, I mean, there's so many of them, but a lot of people, they want to be successful, they want to make a lot of money, but they also have negative beliefs about success and money. And I mean, it's so weird. I've I've met a lot of marketers who hate profit, who hate success, and they all day long they're on social media bashing successful people. And I'm like, why would anybody ever hire you to bring in more profits when you have such a negative belief system about profit? And it seems like it's hip and trendy to hate success nowadays and demonize the successful. At the same time, everybody wants it, but how are you going to get something? I guess it's like, how is the universe going to help align you on the path towards something that you keep telling the universe you despise?
Yeah, really good questions. Again, first, I think it's a comparative piece, because if we compare ourselves to someone that already has something that we want and we're not getting it, then we end up having those negative or resentful feelings. And then we say, therefore, that person is, corrupt. I hear this all the time, actually, a lot. I see a lot of people say, is that person a drug dealer? Is that person doing something shady? Because they have a whole shitload of money and no one knows how they got it, so they automatically assume that that person didn't work hard enough for it, or whatever that is. So I think there's a comparison piece to that. I grew up, I can tell you, my parents were not anti money, but they were anti making too much money. And they used to say, money doesn't grow on trees and crap like that. And being in an orchard, I would say, Mom and Dad, look outside, money does grow on trees for us, because we go out there and pick it. And they would just hate that. But that's the mentality that I actually grew up with. And it probably wasn't up until probably a decade ago, Nathan, probably even less than a decade ago, that I had to overcome that myself, because I had this perception, because some of the people that I knew that had a lot of money were just dicks too. And so I had to separate and say, they're not dicks because they have money, they're just dicks. And so just because, if I have money, doesn't mean I'm going to turn into that person as well. So that's something to pay attention to. But here's something that changed for me, and it's the value system and how we value money. If money is not high on your list, if success is not high on your values list, you'll not achieve it. And that's guaranteed. And that's something I had to take a look at and actually reevaluate it, write it out. I have my values written out and I go back to them, because that's how you make decisions. But one point in particular is you have to go back to your true desire. Again, money doesn't make you happy, but what money can do for you or do for others can make you happy. And for me, ultimately, I have to go back to, because I don't like to, charge the fees that I do for the sake of charging what I do, and making a whole lot of money looking at my bank account. That's not me. I do it because I have one purpose. And that purpose for me is to have that point in time where I can basically take my family around the world and teach my kids, self-school my kids, teach them about different cultures around the world, and also set up animal shelters around the world. That is my goal. That's why I want to make a whole crap load of money, for example, to be able to fund that. And so for you out there listening, what is that ultimate desire that money can help you achieve, whether it's giving back or a lifestyle, whatever that is in life?
Yeah, I think money, the way that I view it, it's kind of like alcohol. It doesn't make you a douchebag, it doesn't make you a good person. It just kind of brings out the
Mm.
true self. And if you're a douchebag or if you're a good person, money will bring more of that out. The last one, and I have a couple of info products, and one of them, the FMS, it's a marketing and copywriting info product, and I have a lot of people that buy it, and I have a community that's built around it. And I notice that some people buy it just to buy it, and then some people buy it to consume it. And I've noticed a big, there's kind of like a divide. There's people that buy courses and books just to get that dopamine drip to feel like they're doing something. And then there's people that buy them to actually consume them and start implementing. And a lot of people feel like just the action of buying is the same thing as actually doing something. And I know a lot of people who they just buy course after course after course after book after book after book, and they don't ever do anything with what they're buying, with what they're learning. And I think it's because they get a sense of accomplishment just from making the purchase. Do you see this, and do you see it as something that holds people back?
Yeah, yeah, I see it all the time. And sometimes I'm guilty of it myself because I like to consume a lot of knowledge. But for people out there, I think this is probably, if I take a look at all the beliefs that you brought up, this is probably one of the biggest challenges, especially for go getters, because they like to know, right? They want to be in the know in terms of what's happening. So let's take a look at from the course thing that you were talking about, and then we'll get into the other pieces. Here's what I'm hearing, and I've talked to a lot of course creators where Nathan and I are in this realm, for example, is that less than 20% of people will actually go through the entire course and complete and execute the stuff. That's why I changed my system actually a number last year. I don't do courses anymore, I do checklists. And everything that I do is based on a checklist system. And because the checklist is based on actions, that's all it is. It's about doing, not necessarily knowing. And so it's how the information is consumed as well and how we present it. And so I stopped buying courses. I don't do that kind of stuff because it's all action oriented. So there's a big difference there. And it's also how we structure our day. A lot of the times, again, it goes back to not seeing the progress that we want. And so a lot of us believe that we don't know something. That's why we're not getting to that place. And so we must be missing something. There must be something I'm completely overlooking. And so that knowledge piece helps us try to fill that gap, you can say. But a lot of times it's not, because a lot of the reasons why we're not getting the progress is because our actions are not effective, or maybe they're not vigorous enough, or maybe we're just not doing them frequently enough. So here's a simple thing that I do, even for myself and for the people that I coach, because the individuals that I coach are high caliber people as well. And these guys consume knowledge like no tomorrow. Is I make sure that they schedule their days so they're action oriented up front and then knowledge seeking after. Whereas I think a lot of people end up doing it the backwards. They end up, they'll read for whatever in the morning and then they'll do some stuff in the afternoon. It's no, get your stuff done in the morning, all the activities that you need to do, the outcomes that you want, then actually layer in the stuff that you need to learn after.
Man, okay, so this podcast could have been a training in itself. I feel like I had some good comprehension of some of this stuff, but then going through it with you, I had a bunch of revelations. I'm going to have to go back and re-listen to this episode. Before we're out of here, if people want to check out more episodes of the podcast, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, check us out at mailedpodcast.com or youtubeformen.com. You're going to see my little son hanging off my arm here. He just came in the room.
Nice. All right, man. Until next time, we will catch you later.
Yeah, awesome episode, man.
All right.